Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Allison Smith, and today I wanted to talk about what I worked on this week. I worked on a really cool piece by Gershwin. The piece I worked on was called Swanee. It's a spirited piece in F major, and I turned it from this to this. In about a week. How did I do that? What are some of my practice strategies? What did I focus on? What difficult parts did I pay more attention to than others? What drills did I do? How do I get progress like that? Well, if you're interested, keep watching because I'm going to share how I practiced this piece during this week. I didn't get it perfect because obviously it's only been a week and the goal wasn't perfection. If you're just interested in seeing how I get a piece a little bit better, these are some things that I work on during a week, so let's jump in. The first thing that I did this week when I was practicing this piece, trying to get it up to speed, was I sight read through the whole piece. I just went and played through it just like this. And I played through it really slow. After I sight read through the piece, I looked through the piece to see what gave me a lot of trouble. The beginning part did not give me a lot of trouble because it was mostly F major chords and pretty straightforward chords. It was just F going to C, going to F, going to C. It wasn't too bad. The second line also wasn't too bad for me either, so this was not hard. It was when I got to measure 9 that I started to have a lot of problems, and this part I drilled a lot. Because it was going so fast, I saw that little triplet and I said, oh my gosh, I have to get off that fast. So I worked on getting off that 4 really fast because I had to get to an A that was a lot farther away. I got off and then I got to that A. So I worked on this extensively. And instead of playing this really slow, sometimes you can want to linger on that and then you'll never get to that other A. So you have to kind of shorten the triplet a little bit more. So I worked on that a lot. I probably drilled that 10 times, even more. I also had to work extensively with the metronome, so I just got out my phone and try to get it on the beat too. So, because that F landed on the second beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Yeah, just getting that on the beat was really hard for me because of the speed it was going. And also, this was tricky for me, this broken chord, because it's going so fast. So I had to get off these chords. I can't linger. I had to get off. And I also had to know exactly where my thumb was going every time. So I had to think, okay, I'm going to go to C, and then to B. Oh. So I went from C to B to B flat. And all of that has to be major fast. Basically, to get the speed of this piece, I had to play everything in staccato, basically. Because although it's not written in staccato, you're going to be forced to play it staccato. Off, off, off. And then you gotta get to here. That was was tricky. Just to get this line alone was the trickiest line for me, and I spent the majority of my time on this line. The pedal will help you when you're trying to get off those notes fast, because look, that's why he wrote pedal for that, because he knew you'd have to get off that C so fast. Yeah, it's still tricky even to this time right now. All right, so just getting off that like fire, getting off those notes like fireworks. Off. Sorry. Off. Oh, sorry. Did you see how fast I got off all of those notes? Because when you're going to play it at full speed, it's going to be so fast you won't have time to linger on any of those notes. All right, moving on to the next part. I found this section a little bit more difficult because measures 9 and 10 were so fast that I wanted to go faster on measures 11 and 12, but I had to purposely slow myself down because I had such adrenaline with these two measures that I wanted to go faster on those sections. So I had to get the metronome and say, all right, it's going slower than I think. So I had to practice that with the metronome. Moving on to measure 13. Now this part was tricky. Measure 14, it was right here. That 4 going to the 1 was really tricky because it's kind of awkward and it's a little bit fast. So you have to think to yourself, this piece is going so fast, you don't need to be connecting. Remember, everything should be staccato. I just have to get off that 4 and onto that 1 as soon as possible. So I drilled that a ton. Now this was even more difficult. After that scalar passage going up, you're on a 5, but then you have to get to this chord. So I had to practice this part. Because it's going very fast, and so how are you going to get to a 5 to a chord? So I learned a lot about Gershwin in this specific piece. I learned that he loves fast passages, he loves chromatic passages, and he loves octaves, especially octave splays. So we have... If you practice Gershwin, your scales are going to get really good. You're also going to learn how to play staccato scales. Okay, moving on. This part was tricky. I couldn't get this chromatic part. So it was measure 14, 15, measure 16. This took me a long time just because I was too lazy to think about it. So sometimes parts might give you trouble just because you're lazy. And in this specific instance, I was lazy. So right here, I was just too lazy to figure out the obstacle course that my fingers were going to. This is 14, measure 16. I was too lazy to figure out where my fingers were going chromatically. For this specific part, I had to actually tell myself numbers based on which finger was going on a black key. So this one, 3, that 3 is on a black key, then the 2, and then the 3. Because those were the fingers that were changing. Everything else was pretty simple, but if you have to make up something to help you practice a little bit better, do it. Even if it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't matter as long as it gets the job done. And for me, that 2-3-2-3 worked. 3-2-3, 3-2-3, and I can even look at my fingers and know that they're doing 3-2-3. 3, 2, 3. And back to F major. And this is why I said that I didn't have to practice the first two lines too much because I knew that the first two lines were coming back again in measure 17 to 21. So this piece was pretty easy because there was a few difficult passages. It was really primarily measures 9 to 14, 15, measures 9 to 16 and measures 25 to 29. That's the only parts that gave me the most trouble. It was this right here, measure 25. Because they're just going in odd places. And it's going very fast, especially that left hand. Look at this left hand in measure 25. Also, I have small hands, so getting these octaves very fast. These aren't even octaves. This is actually a tenth, but it's broken apart. Thank goodness it's broken apart. But I have to go from my 3 back to a 5, and I have to get that on beat 1. That is so tricky. He only gave me an 8th note to get there. So we have... So what I often would do was I would play this 8th note in measure 25 a little bit early so I could get down to my 5 on beat 1. I heard from my teacher that sometimes you can kind of get things a little bit earlier. That way you can be straight on that downbeat. You don't want to mess up the downbeat of beat 1 on a measure, but you can kind of take it easy with beat 4. So, a little bit faster. Yeah, so take it a little bit early so that you're on the note on beat 1, if that makes sense. D sharp. This part was a little tricky. I had to actually think about it. So I went, so there was like a half step thing. I said, okay, that's a half step. Then down. And he did a pattern. He did this. 16th, 8th, going down 8th, 16th, 8th. So I just thought, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. I kind of thought of it like that and just traveling down. Stepping down, stepping down, da, da, ending in F major. So, if I had to break down this piece, it's measures 9 to 16 and 25 to 29 is the hardest in this whole piece. Just getting those octaves that are even more than an octave. I would honestly practice those parts hands separately. That's all I pretty much did during the week, and getting it especially with the metronome. And making sure to get off those notes as fast as possible, because staying on the note is going to hinder your speed. I practiced this like crazy because this took me so long. This part is even harder than measure 25 in my honest opinion. But let's just go back to measure 25. This is hard right here, going from here to here. All of the leaps, yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say. So any takeaways I would say from this piece is practice, of course, hands separately, practice with a metronome, get off the notes really fast. I'd play the whole thing basically in staccato, especially since he's allowing you to do pedal a lot. and drill, drill, drill. That is what I've learned from this week of practice. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I hope some of these practice tips were helpful during your weekly practice. Please give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video. And thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video.